Welcome to Club Soda's Mindful Drinking Festival. We're online, global, and as always, absolutely free. Hi, I'm Drew, and I'm one of the co-founders of Club Soda.
And I'm Laura, the other co-founder of Club Soda. We help you change your drinking in ways that help you live well. So whether you're looking to cut down, stop for a bit, or quit, you can find what you need from podcasts and books and courses on joinclubsoda.com. This festival, we've brought you an amazing lineup from over 100 people from across the world.
And our programme this time really is global.
Every day starts down under with me, Sarah. As well as organising the festival in Australia, I spend my time looking for alcohol-free alternatives and tips for people who choose not to drink, but who still want to live a social, fun and adventurous life.
And I'll be wrapping up each day here in the States. I'm Amanda, your US festival host and coordinator, and I'm also a mindset coach who helps women change their relationship with alcohol so that they can start living their most authentic life.
Each day with a rolling programme of inspirational panels, conversations, social events, and opportunities to discover new low and low alcohol drinks.
So whether you want inspiration to change your drinking,
Or to connect with other people,
or you want to discover and enjoy a new low and no alcohol drink,
The Mindful Drinking Festival is for you.
Cheers! Cheers!
cheers!
Cheers!
Cheers!
Cheers!
cheers, cheers.
Hi there, I'm Luke. I'm the founder of Lucky Saint, and I'm delighted to be here this evening on the Mindful Drinking Festival. And I'm joined by Steve Livens from the BBPA. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Luke. How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks. And you?
Yeah, very well, very well.
Good. Where are you? Where are you based this evening?
I'm based in the beautiful and sunny Surrey Hills this evening. I'm just outside of Dorking, where we live. Looking forward to enjoying a glass of Lucky Saint and a bit of a chat.
Great. I'm down in sunny Devon this evening. I had a day on the beach, and now likewise looking forward to talking a little bit about Lucky Saint, a little bit about the BBPA, and then also I think we're going to touch on some of the health benefits and properties of the low and no space.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd just start quickly by talking a little bit about Lucky Saint. We're almost 2 years old. We launched in October of 2018. The journey to get there was almost as long, actually. I spent 2 years working with 6 different brewers in 3 different countries, trying to figure out how to make great tasting non-alcoholic beer. It took me on a good journey through the UK, through Belgium, and then ultimately to Germany, and always in pursuit of trying to create the definitive alcohol-free Pilsner. So a very classic lager, and I've got it here this evening. Looking forward to enjoying one with you, Steve.
I've got mine here. There you
go. So yeah, it's as I said, it's a classic Pilsner. It's brewed with Pilsner malt, Hallertau hop, which is a traditional regional hop from Bavaria, Bavarian spring water, and then our own single-use yeast. And then it takes, in terms of the process to make it, it takes 6 weeks to brew Lucky Saint. There's 2 weeks of fermentation and then 4 weeks of conditioning. So it's a time-consuming labor of love. And then and then we leave it unfiltered in order to retain as much flavor and body as we can in the beer. Cheers.
Cheers. Absolutely.
Steve, it'd be fascinating. I'd love to. So my background's not in beer, and I know you're a beer sommelier. I'm fascinated to hear how a beer sommelier talks about and tastes the beer. So is it worth spending a few minutes just talking about Lucky Saint, and I don't know, trying to explain to the listeners the flavor profile and how it ranks as an alcohol-free beer?
I think you know, to be fair, you've got to say how this ranks as a beer, full stop. I mean, I absolutely as an alcohol-free beer, but you know, as a beer sommelier, and I have to say, what is aside from being a brewer, perhaps the most exciting job in the beer industry, because you get to drink all sorts, and it's a wonderful way to spend your time. I think what has blown me away, and I started out as a beer sommelier. I've worked in the brewing industry for 25, nearly 30 odd years, and a lot of what I've done has been kind of on the technical side. So how beer is made, the ingredients, the microbiology, the processes, and when I became a sommelier, in that journey to become a sommelier, that was really the sort of thing I was interested in telling. That was my focus, and I have to say, you know, enjoying beer like this as an alcohol-free option, and as a pilsner, the comparison is with a standard strength pilsner. The flavors that are there, the beautiful sort of that delicate biscuit balance, that slight creaminess, and the softness that you get from that, but then that nice spiciness that comes through the hop. They're very sort of delicate, fruity, slight citrusy sort of hoppy spiciness that's there as well. It's a really, really lovely, nice, beautiful sort of balanced beer, with that little bit of an extra sort of edge to it, that little extra kick to it, and it's all there. The whole smash, the whole package is there within that mouthful, and on that aroma. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Oh, kind words, Steve. I'd love to hear about how you think like the category has evolved over the last few years, and because I know since I started thinking about this in 2015, and there were basically 2 products on the market, and that was it. And now the category is awash with you know, a wave of like new products. Of much better quality. What's your experience kind of from, I guess, looking at the category? Because mine is sitting in it.
Yeah, and a brave place to be to a certain extent as well. It's certainly at the leading edge of everything right now too. It's got to be. I mean, without doubt, it's got to be one of the more exciting things that we've seen in the brewing industry. Certainly of recent times, and you know, it is very much a success story that the industry has seen, just dramatically growing, and you know, it's got that sort of real momentum and a real sort of solid momentum behind it too. It's not an innovation. It's not something I think that we expect to see change anytime soon. And you know, indeed, if you look at other countries, other parts of the world where they're perhaps a little bit ahead of us, and I think, you know, Spain for me, from working at the BBPA and seeing some of the things that we've seen over the years, the work the Spanish put into this as a category, and the impact of that on the proportion of their market that is alcohol free is just huge, and we're still some way behind that. So we still have some way to go, but by far and away the most interesting side of things really is that growth, and it's huge, absolutely huge. I mean, if you look at the sort of 2013 to 2018, we saw that category grow over 230%. It's just big numbers, and it continues to show that potential for growth too. That, you know, it's certainly there. Aside from COVID and the impacts that we've seen of late, and that I think is certainly kind of derailed a large number of people. It's you know, it's still in that growth, and you know, I suppose taking things like Dry January as an example. I think was it 4.8. I think it was 4.8 million pints of low alcohol beer that we figured were sold in January alone. So massive demand.
Mostly in packaged format, presumably.
I think a large percentage of it, yeah. I mean, the push to draft is a relatively new thing. It's It's an obstacle that that to a certain extent is out of the hands of the producers to kind of to get to. But I think we're starting to see that real kind of that real increase, that real significant in interest from the consumer, from the public, enough to justify having a product then in a draft format. And at that point, you know, you've got the potential for everything at that point, and it becomes hugely exciting when you get into discussions about draft and availability in draft.
Yeah, we launched on draft in January, and the thing that was most took me most by surprise was, as a consumer, just how brilliant it was having alcohol-free beer on draft. So yeah. For me, it was like the final kind of hurdle, as it were.
And what kind of pushed your decision-making process to get to that point?
To be honest, it was something. It had kind of been. We'd been talking about it for about a year, and there was so much skepticism. Really, if I speaking to people in the trade about whether it would work, you know, whether the consumer demand was there or not. Ultimately, it was. I just felt. I guess I've been asked about it enough times, and so we went out. We decided in typical startup fashion. We decided in November that we'd launch it in January. So we scrambled. We scrambled in quite a meaningful way, and we managed to get. We launched with 50 venues in London, which was fantastic, and it went miles better. I think we sold 30,000 pints in the space of 4 weeks.
Wow.
It was just, yeah, and from a consumer perspective, I loved it. Going out having 4 or 5 pints, not something I do a lot of these days. So yeah, loved it, and yeah, I'm excited to see the on-trade opening back up, and that progress, kind of resuming that progress from pre-COVID. I think it's worth saying that. So Lucky Saint was very excited to be the first alcohol-free beer brand to join the BBPA earlier this year.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about it, because I think I'm keen for Lucky Saint to help play a role in shaping the future of beer and pubs. And I think there's lots of exciting things going on within the pub industry and with alcohol free, and I think there's a really exciting opportunity to kind of help push it forward and get better availability for consumers in pubs, and as I said, kind of draft being a big one. So yeah, thanks for having us into the BBC.
Absolute pleasure. I mean, I think we've been hugely excited to have you on board as a member, and I think, you know, a reflection really. Our members up to now, largely the sort of standard strength, beer producers. They have, of course, low alcohol beers in their portfolio, but conscious that the industry is getting to a point now where producers are setting up on the basis, as you have done, solely of producing alcohol-free beers in their portfolio, which is, you know, hugely exciting to see. In and of itself, that is this fantastic reflection of, you know, where the category is moving in that sense, to base your entire business model around that. So great to have you guys as part of that, and a huge boon, I think, to the work that we have done and continue to do around alcohol-free and low alcohol, particularly, to promote that. And you know, there are a number of different benefits that we typically sort of see as part of that process, and in connection with those kind of drinks, which I certainly overlap with the sort of standard strength stuff, but in themselves, a huge benefit to to just drinking alcohol free.
And what do you think? How important do you think alcohol free is going to be going forward? What role do you think it will play within pubs? Is it all being driven by the consumer? And is it all about the consumer kind of demanding that they get the breadth of choice that they're looking for? Can alcohol free be a great thing for the beer and pub industry?
Yeah, absolutely, and and undeniably, this is something that consumers are driving, and young consumers in particular, interested in healthier lifestyle choices. Their perspectives on things, and the choices that they're looking for, the choices that they're seeking to make around their kind of their lives and the food and the drink that they eat and how that it's very much a lifestyle thing, I think, rather than just a brand or a product specific thing. It becomes a part of a much bigger decision-making process, and pubs and brewers and the food sector as a whole is having to respond to those demands and those interests, and alcohol-free for us is just a reflection of that, and a big opportunity. It has to be said, I think, for the brewing industry. I think certainly for brewers, for beer, we're in a much more comfortable place, I think, in that sense than a lot of other of the alcohol sectors. We have a huge ability to create high quality drinks that present themselves in an entirely unique way, that are within themselves, a product in their own right, something that stand on their own 2 feet. That's a great place. It's a very exciting place to be for the industry, and it presents us with a huge opportunity going forward. And as you say, for pubs as well, seeing these drinks coming into pubs, having to respond to that demand as well. It's a very exciting place.
And I was intrigued. I think it was earlier this year there was a Bristol City Council made a move to make alcohol-free compulsory in on-trade venues on draft. Do you think that we'll see that happen more widespread, or is the trade going to move that way anyway?
I don't think. I mean, my instinct is that I don't know that there's necessarily a need for it, but I mean, it's fascinating, and I think to a certain extent that is where the industry is going. I think certainly from the perspective of draft, as I say, it's very early days, and there's a number of reasons, technical reasons, quality, food safety reasons why draft beer is different from small pack beer, from bottles and cans and this sort of thing. There's a lot around the requirement to maintain good hygiene standards and things, which is a very important part of beer and pubs, and I think at the moment is a big sort of focus of interest. That whole quality piece, it reflects the same thing. But I think largely at the moment the choice is much more in small pack cans and bottles, and to a certain extent, I think in as far as presenting choice, presenting options for customers, I'm not sure that necessarily specifying draft is the right way to go, because there is so much, in small pack anyway. As we go and as you get more draft products, great, perfect. And pubs would be crazy not to consider that as an option to serve. I don't know that there's a need to specify it, but certainly to specify an alcohol-free option, yeah, absolutely, I think. And as I say, a lot of pubs a long way ahead of some restaurants in that way, I think.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk about health trends and the role alcohol-free can play in healthier lifestyles. Is it worth kicking off maybe with just we could talk? I mean, I can talk about Lucky Saint specifically. I don't know whether you want to talk a bit more broadly about the category of low and no alcohol beer and how it compares nutritionally to full strength beer and even to other alcoholic drinks products. Maybe it would be interesting to find out where low and no sits on the scale, and then I'll jump in, and I can tell you where the sort of the lucky saint piece as well.
Yeah, I think, I mean, for me, the most exciting thing about alcohol-free is to a certain extent what they reflect of beer as it is. I think that, you know, there's a lot of misconception around beer and its nutritional composition, and you know, there's a good reason historically we refer to beer as liquid bread, because it's made with much the same stuff that we use to make bread. It's a cereal base, so all of that goodness, all of that nutritional benefit that we get from cereals is all there. But to a certain extent, for us, for brewers, it's there in greater quantities because of the way we treat the cereal in the first place. Barley isn't milled in the same way that we do for bread making. Certainly not to that fine level where it is kind of broken up a little more. And so in that sense, it's a less destructive process, and it leads to much more of that nutritional composition and that contribution into the final product. The hops, the yeast, these all kind of provide a variety of different nutritional benefits that ultimately create a drink that has got quite a high nutritional composition to it. Vitamins, B vitamins in particular, particularly rich in B vitamins, amino acids, proteins.
Forgive my ignorance. What are B vitamins and amino acids good for? Any ideas?
All sorts of things. I mean, we get a lot of benefit we get a little bit of benefit. Silicon is a good one. Silicon is a natural. Beer is one of the very few things that is naturally rich in silicon. Silicon is fantastic for skin, hair, nails, all this stuff. It's a really, really positively beneficial nutrition. I suppose the thing is, at the end of the day, that it's the alcohol ultimately that leaves us with a place as to, you know, where we want to start thinking about moderating our drinking. And the difference between alcohol-free and standard strength is simply the alcohol content. That's it. The rest of it is all there. So in that sense, it's a fantastic way of saying, look, you know, if you're looking to avoid alcohol, you're still getting all that wonderful benefit, but you can avoid alcohol and still enjoy what you would normally drink. And that's hugely exciting. It's a great sports drink in that sense too. Alcohol-free is a fantastic way of replacing minerals and vitamins and things that the sorts of things that you lose through intensive exercise. Beer is a fantastic natural source of a lot of those things. You can put back in. It makes it a great sort of post-exercise drink in that sense. In fact, the only thing it's missing, and beer doesn't really have any salt. So this is a great place for the pretzels.
A great place for the what? Sorry.
For the pretzels, salty peanuts. It's the perfect it's the perfect combination when it comes to sort of post-exercise liquid consumption.
Yeah, and because the big piece that everyone talks about is calorie content.
Yep.
And the way I think about this is that when you brew beer, you extract the sugar from the malt. The sugars are then fermented and turn into alcohol. And it's therefore the alcohol that really carries a lot of the calorie content. Yeah. So in our case, when we're going from 5% to 0.5%, we end up with a beer that contains less than half, even a third of the calories of its full strength equivalent. Have I got is my logic correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there is. I mean, alcohol-free beers are made in a variety of different ways, and there is a contribution from the way that the beer is made. And you're absolutely right. The point is that the yeast will use up whatever sugar is present to create the alcohol, and that leaves us really then with whatever kind of residual proteins and carbohydrates. And carbohydrates include things like fiber. Which are hugely important nutritional composition that you get from fiber, and And in that sense, because you take the alcohol away, you're absolutely right. The calorie content is typically less. At worst, it's going to be similar to the sort of the level of a fairly weak beer. But yeah, by and large, that's exactly the right thing.
I was amazed. So I remember because developing, like you say, like calorie content and the nutritional values of it weren't really a big consideration. It was all, for me, it was all around developing something that had the best flavor possible, and actually figuring out what the nutritional values were just it was just a mandatory that we just sort of went through. And so I couldn't believe it when we sent them off for analysis, and then we got the results back, and I couldn't believe it because it's just over 50 calories in a bottle. It's got like 0 sugar in it, and at that point I'm thinking, God, it's sort of healthier than orange juice.
Yeah. It gets to this point though, doesn't it? And the really exciting, the really interesting thing is that the effort, the art of the brewer, producing in that sense is not really about creating something which is nutritionally rich. It kind of is. That's just the way it works, really. In your sense, because of the style and the type of beer you're looking to make, you've actually sort of honed that a little bit further. But that's really the effort and the ability to create the sort of balance and flavor and a drink that is enjoyable in that sense, by removing that alcohol, because the alcohol is an important flavor characteristic to the beer as well. If you remove the alcohol, it's a very large flavor component that then just disappears, which upsets the whole balance of the drink. So to be able to compensate for that loss and still have that wonderful sort of that wonderful flavor, that wonderful characteristic at the end of the day, is in itself no mean feat. All the sort of added benefits of a reduced calorie content, and all of the other stuff that we've talked about too. This is what's so exciting about the category itself, I think. Yeah,
it's interesting because alcohol. Everyone says alcohol is tasteless, but there's definitely it gives a drink it's sort of difficult to put your finger on it, but it's a sensation within a drink, and it does carry flavor for sure. And the way I've kind of come to think about it is that actually alcohol-free doesn't need to give you that same sensation necessarily, but it does need to give the underlying flavors still need to be there. It's very difficult to kind of replicate that per se, but the important thing is making sure that everything tastes damn good underneath it, and there's nothing nasty. And it's also the other thing I found when I was trying out the various different processes for making non-alcoholic beer was that funny enough, without alcohol, it's like walking a tightrope. So getting your bitterness right without having astringency from the hops it's this incredibly fine kind of tightrope that you walk down, because there's no alcohol to kind of to hide behind almost.
Yeah, I agree, and you know what, I think this is really why I think part of the struggle is to get the consumer to kind of give it a go, to trust that actually we're so far away from where we once were with a couple of these kind of products at a sort of at a certain stage. We are so far away from that now in terms of the quality and the diversity, and even from a style perspective. I mean, I find that really kind of really exciting from the consumer's standpoint. Now you do have that ability to select your favorite style of beer, potentially your favorite brand of beer, but you're looking at dark beers, ales, lagers, and within those different styles, the various kind of sub styles as well. So it's an exciting time, and I think if we can present consumers with that sort of ability just to explore, I've yet to come across an instance where given that opportunity, somebody turns around and says, "No, that's really not for me. It tastes horrible. I'm never going there again." It's fantastic as a product in that sense.
So certainly, our biggest finding has been that it's about getting consumers to try Lucky Saint. Like preconceptions of alcohol-free beer have suffered from years of like abuse. So now, the consumers are like, they're now preconditioned to think that it's not going to taste great. And actually, so I find our biggest job is just to get beer in someone's glass and get them drinking it. And fun enough, almost the biggest compliment is the surprise when someone says it's just like a full strength beer.
Yeah. I mean, that, for you guys, that must be so exciting to hear.
Yeah, it's great. I've stood in front of a few Sainsbury's stores over the past 12 months doing sampling, and it is literally you are. I mean, you're genuinely up against that kind of absolute. Would you like to try it? What is it? Alcohol-free beer? Oh no. And then, or even the other classic actually is if you offer it to them and they see it's beer and they say no, I'm driving, and then you say, well, it's fine, it's alcohol-free, and then they don't know what to do with themselves.
They've got nowhere to go at that point.
No, exactly.
It's a nice one.
In terms of the opportunities for alcohol-free and low alcohol, where do you think kind of we could see? Where do you think consumers could see more of alcohol-free and more of the exciting things that could be coming?
I think there's a few things. I think the opportunities are still somewhat wrapped around introducing the category and sort of getting that buy-in from consumers to just experiment, just to try, because as you say, I think there's a lot of that kind of misconception about the way this is going to taste, the flavor of it. The opportunity for in that sense, again, as I say, I think is very much about, this is not just generic beer. This is a style, and even to that extent, it's so much fun. Just as a beer sommelier, it's so much fun doing those kind of sessions, just to sort of take people through the different styles and what they mean, and where the different characteristics come from and the flavors and this sort of thing. We're in exactly the same place with alcohol free in that sense. From a sort of broader industry perspective, I think the exciting thing is really the offer to enable people to kind of who are looking to make those kind of lifestyle choices, those healthier choices, to still kind of take part in whatever events, whatever kind of regular sort of evening activity is going on. It's not an excuse now not to sort of go to the pub, because you're not looking to drink alcohol, or you're looking for those kind of different choices. Pubs have those choices available, and I think the more that the consumers, the more the public kind of seek that out, and are actively looking for those choices, the more the more pressure there are for licensees, for pubs to respond to that too, and that can only be a good thing in the sort of the longer term. The ability to have these products widely on draft, as much as in small pack, in bottles and cans, absolutely. Again, just that increase in choice, that increase in diversity, and I think to a certain extent starting to test the sort of perception of beer in that way, in much the same way we have done with standard strength, and sort of looking at it as part of sort of food and beer pairing opportunities and this kind of thing. Doing that in much the same way, I think, with alcohol free, because there are exactly the same opportunities in that sense.
Fantastic. I'm just thinking where we should go next. I think we've got maybe a couple more minutes before we round up.
Yeah.
What are your? I'd love to hear actually what your perceptions of kind of Lucky Saint are, you know, where you'd like to see us go next?
I'd be fascinated actually to see. I don't know if you have plans to sort of expand the portfolio to look at different styles. I'd be fascinated to see, you know, where that goes. I just think for me at the moment, that, you know, this is a fantastic product, and it you know, it's so exciting to have a drink that has no alcohol in it, but which, you know, is an authentic beer style in that sense, and has all of those characteristics. So I'm kind of excited in that way. I think. I mean, what are your plans? Do you have sort of thoughts about where your next step might be?
I don't know. It runs through my head all the time. Mainly, I believe in that we should be doing one thing really, really well. And we have, you know, I think we've got a really great product. So, you know, it should be all about pushing that and focusing on making that as good as humanly possible. Yeah. And then I have flashes of excitement around doing another style. But yeah, there's nothing quite in the pipeline. They're all ideas in my head at the moment.
That's good though. It's nice. It's good. It's good to have that kind of stuff fermenting there, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Interestingly, it might just be worth talking about 0.5%, because it just came up. I don't know, something you said just reminded me there. It's a conversation that happens. It's a conversation I have nearly every day. There are lots of people who are extremely familiar with it, and then there are some people who are not familiar with it and don't understand the difference between 0 and 0.5, and, you know, what is alcohol free. So I think maybe I'll let you do the technical bit. I think my understanding. Well, actually, I know. So in this country, we sit slightly differently from the rest of the world. So the rest of the world treats anything up to 0.5% as alcohol free. Whereas if you brew in this country and bottle and sell in this country, that is technically not considered. It has to be 0.05 or less to be considered alcohol free. Lucky Saint actually happens to sit in a slightly ambiguous place in that we're brewed and bottled and packaged in Germany, because there was the reason we're out there is because there's a particular piece of technology that I wanted to use that wasn't available over here. So we technically sit kind of under EU rules. But I think the important thing for the category and what there's been a lot of chat about over the last 12 months is that the UK will hopefully move in line with the rest of the world in terms of calling 0.5% alcohol free.
Yeah.
What are the? Because I always find it interesting. There's a ton of products out there that we don't think about having alcohol in them that actually might have more alcohol than 0.5%, but you never know about it. What's the sensible kind of attitude to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I think we've kind of struggled with, I think, for a little while. We have a very, very stringent legislative process here in the UK, and as you say, we currently have a variety of different labelling requirements around different strength thresholds that then dictate the descriptors we can use for different beers. So at the moment, yeah, you're absolutely right. In the UK, up to 0.05% ABV, something can be called alcohol free. From 0.05% up to 1.2%, we can refer to that as low alcohol, but very specifically up to 0.5%. If we want to call it something specific, we can call it de-alcoholized, which is the most ugly expression. And I don't think I know anybody that likes that. It's a horrendous marketing term, and absolutely, it very accurately describes the process of of creating a beer. And actually, to be fair, I think it doesn't reflect the way that we do things. In that sense, I think even from that point of view, it's more about alcohol control than it is about alcohol removal, as we see more commonly with the sort of 0.05% type beers. But we are alone on our own little island in that sense. The vast majority of Europe, Australia, the US as well, they all recognise that. Essentially anything up to sort of 0.5% is alcohol free, and you're absolutely right. Interesting array of quite a broad array of different foodstuffs, from sort of ripe bananas up to kind of burger buns and baked products, have got surprising quantities of alcohol in it, up to, and sort of in some terms beyond that quantity. And I think from a our position, or certainly what we sort of think is that if you've got the vast majority of the world talking about alcohol-free being at this point, then it makes sense for everybody to be talking in the same terms. From a business point of view, I think it's difficult for brewers in the UK, for those that do invest a significant amount of money in creating these beers. Are not simple things to make. They cost a lot of money, and in a lot of cases they cost a lot more money to create than a standard strength beer, because of that extra technology that's required, and for then UK producers to be sort of in that place. It's we think it's an even playing field. I think is what you're looking to achieve with that, and I think it makes life a lot easier for the consumer too, if you're seeing those descriptors used uniformly.
Yeah, I think I always put my consumer hat on, and I'm in essence I'm a moderator, probably a reasonably strong moderator, but I'm still a moderator. Funny enough, I was actually having dinner with some friends the other night, and I ordered a Virgin Mary, but I think the waitress misheard me, and I was like, "Oh, that's a really, really good Virgin Mary." And I said, "Yeah, can I have another one of those Virgin Marys, please?" She looked at me, she was like, "That was Bloody Mary." I was like, "Ah, okay."
Yeah. I gotta say,
if I have my moderating hat on, sense says to me, and this is what I always believe. It was like, let's make the best product humanly possible, and it happens that we can make Lucky Saint taste much better at 0.5% than we could ever at 0.0%. And if we want to bring a whole raft of new people into the category, we need to do that because it tastes great, not because we functionally got it to 0.0. That's my. So I always feel that for the most part, the moderation is the much bigger trend, and one that's really important for consumers. But you need to bring people into the category because they're great tasting products.
And I genuinely think actually that having those different defined descriptors that we have with those different thresholds, actually makes it slightly more difficult to bring people in that way. I think if you've got a sort of standalone, I have absolutely no doubt that there will be some producers that will look to produce beer at a certain level, and others that will look to produce it at a different one. And I think it's all about, as you say, encouraging people to get into that space and innovate within that sort of category, without being overtly constrained by those different thresholds and what you can or can't do from sort of a regulatory perspective.
Yeah, I can see we've got a couple of questions. I'm going to try and here's one from Nicole. She says, I suffered from allergies from normal beer, stuffy nose, sinus, etc. Would that be solved by alcohol-free beer?
Yeah, no, that I'm afraid not, Nicole. That's not really the cause. It's it's typically the cereals, gluten-containing cereals that cause the allergies that we associate with beer. But there are non-gluten containing beers around as well, actually.
Yeah, And then there's a question from Tom. We've seen the alcohol-free spirits really start to create new flavors. I guess what he's referring to is if you take Seedlip as an example, they're not. It's not a gin replica. It's a new flavor in its own right. He goes on with beer. I guess we think most of the time every style has been created that could be. So does that? That's ready. He says, can stripping alcohol out allow for alcohol-free beers to create something new that isn't possible in the alcoholic beer world?
I kind of disagree. I think it's quite interesting. There's about 250 recognized beer styles in the world, but that list grows. There's either sort of resurgence of historical styles that are kind of fallen out of fashion or favor, and people kind of rediscovering them, or there are evolutions of styles too. IPA is probably a great example of that, where you've got now a whole raft of different interpretations of IPA. Similarly with saisons as well, a bit of a blank canvas saison. You can create a whole variety of different of different characteristics that you associate with that. And I think, the use of ingredients gives us massive, huge palette. I mean, even on the assumption that there's about 400 different flavor components we get from hops alone, let alone what we get from the other ingredients. You're using spices and fruits and all the rest of it. I think there's a long way to go. I don't think there is. I mean, I think in itself, alcohol-free, stripping alcohol out, creating alcohol-free beers is just an extension of what we currently do with beer styles already. And definitely there is potential there for these beers to stand alone, have their, to be in their own category. They don't need necessarily to just reflect traditional styles. Although I think, that is a very exciting way to do things.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say there's I don't think the category needs to restrict itself to simply replicating the existing beer styles, because that makes the assumption that non-alcoholic versions of existing alcoholic beer styles will make the best non-alcoholic beers. It might be that without the alcohol, there's a different flavor profile that works better. And I suspect we're going to see tons of innovation in that way.
Yeah, well, I agree.
We got a question from Nico. Now that beer is evolving, will they ever develop a low-calorie version? I'm guessing he's meaning in full. I'm guessing he's meaning in full strength version, i.e., non-alcoholic beer is much lower in calories. So is the next move, if alcohol-free shows massive growth because it's low in calorie, does that mean you'll start to see lower calorie versions of full-strength beers?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly there are low-calorie versions already. I mean, there is, as I say, a lot of what dictates the calorie content is also linked with how we remove the alcohol, or how the beer is produced. I think this is what a lot of people don't realize, haven't sort of come across, is that a lot of alcohol-free beers are produced initially as an alcohol version. It's just that the alcohol that is produced through that fermentation process is then just taken away. And so, to a certain extent, the way that the product is brewed and how that alcohol production is controlled will dictate that calorie level. But I mean, certainly there are lower calorie versions, and I think, to be fair, even Lucky Saint is kind of knocking at the door at sort of the lower end of what we find.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, listen, Steve, thank you very much for your time this evening. Really enjoyed chatting.
You too, Luke. It's been good fun. Great thing to be doing on a Saturday night, I tell you, and accompanied by a very, very nice beer as well.
Also worth saying big thank you to Laura and all the team at Club Soda for hosting this. Hope everyone's had a great weekend. You can find more out about Lucky Saint at luckysaint.co. And we're also running there's a discount code if you'd like to buy beer off our website, and that's ClubSoda20 for 20% off. Have a great evening. Thanks again, Steve. And
thanks. I've written that discount down, by the way. Just go to the net of that.
Perfect. Have a great one. Thanks, Steve. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.